Hi everyone, Claire Rowley here from Creative Feet. I am doing a live video, my first time going live on Instagram. So I'm actually going to show you my OCTI-HOOPS and do a little free motion quilting. And well, let's give it a go. I'm hoping the camera will flip around. We will find out now. Here we go. If you haven't seen my sewing machine before, it is painted. Get this camera ready. I just have a piece of batting and 2 layers of material. It hasn't been basted at all. And I'm going to be using my OCTI-HOOPS. And these are frames that come 3 to a set. And then they have this little handles that drop in to any one of all of 8 sides of each of the frames. When we do free motion quilting, we're actually going to utilize 2 frames at once, and the one that goes on top of the quilt is the one that's closest to your hand in size, because you're actually going to steer holding on to this little handle here, and you can see it's not doing anything, it's not moving the fabric. But if we take this one and place it beneath, drop the smaller one inside and grab one corner, now the entire quilt moves. So I'm going to take and place that one beneath. This one goes on top, and you can see how it nests within the other one, and just bring one corner into the corner of the other. And your hand rests on the frame, and then you steer like that. So here we go. That frame beneath, this frame on top. Let's see if I can get a little more comfortable. Okay. Now, unlike other systems, you don't push down. Instead, you hold that, and the quilt floats over the bed of the machine. So there's no need to ever apply any downward pressure. You're actually going to put your elbow on the table, and then you just start quilting, and bring your bobbin thread up if your sewing machine requires that you do. You'll notice there's no presser foot on the machine because we don't need one with the OCTI-HOOPS. You can see how I can follow around that polka dot easily. I can go over and join to the other one. And come around to this one. Now I can just keep going around and around and making circles. This would be kind of challenging if you didn't have this little handle to hold on to. You can do echo quilting. So these are my OCTI-HOOPS. They're free motion quilt frames that make it so you can do free motion easily on any straight stitch sewing machine. Some stippling, and what we have here is one frame beneath the quilt without any basting or any safety pins on top of the bottom frame, and the top frame nests within the one beneath it. And your elbows are down, and you can see that it moves real easily on the bed of the machine. doesn't require any real muscle to push your quilt around. This is my first time going live on Instagram, so this is now showing you I can also draw straight lines. Pretty much anything you can do with a pen and paper, because we're using the same posture. We're writing with a writing instrument, moving fingers, not our arm, and supporting the paper, or in this case the quilt, with the other hand. And if you're left-handed, you would just switch to the opposite hand. So I'm going to have fun here and quilt for a little while. You'll notice that I can do really close spacings, which would be very difficult without the hoops. And you can also do your pebbles, because all a pebble is a circle, which is the same as the letter O. So as we are drawing with our fingers, going like this instead of like that, it is much easier to achieve these more complex shapes. And as this does not attach to your sewing machine can use it, because not only are we attaching this not to your machine at all, but we're also not using a foot. The feed dogs are up. They can be lowered if you want, but they don't interfere at all, because without a presser foot, the feed dogs cannot actually grab the fabric. So you can see how pebbles are relatively easy, and let's see, I'll do a feather in case any of you want to see a feather. So again, these are the OCTI-HOOPS. You get 3 in the set. They don't actually attach to your machine, but they work together because they're the same shape. When you bring one into the corner of the other, it makes them move together. So we can also, anything you could doodle on a piece of paper, you can now draw on your quilt. So you don't have to quilt with the typical stippling. You can do as I'm doing here and do hearts. I recommend that if you're going to do hearts, that you don't do them all the same size, so that if you do mess up, nobody knows, because you don't have real continuity going anyway. So these are the OCTI-HOOPS, Coach Darren. There are 3 in the kit, and they have these holes on all 8 sides, and they drop in. This is a product that I developed to make it so that you could do free motion without injury, and you can also use it for thread painting or machine embroidery. So it's just a regular straight stitch sewing machine, even though it's painted. And these are available at creativefeet.com. So here we go. Now, because you're actually, let me see if I can get to where you can see my hand better. There you go. So you can actually rest your hand on the bottom frame instead of being on the actual sewing machine like that. You're actually putting your hand on the bottom frame and then holding on to the handle and moving with your fingers. So it's difficult in portrait for you to capture everything that I'm doing here, but my elbows are resting on the table and arm resting, and then I put my hand on the actual hoop, and even though nothing is attached to anything, everything moves simultaneously because of the shape of the octagon. So bring one corner into the corner of the other, and the quilt becomes locked without being stretched. So you can quilt without puckering. And you'll notice I don't lower my needle, because you can see exactly where you left off. So if you know what you're going to do before you begin, it's helpful. You can hop over, oops, and then do, and come over here. And these are carryover threads that you would just tear or cut after or pull into the quilt. I had another thread drop in and cause my thread to move. So that's why I ended up with that little loop there. So because you're writing with your hand, you have the same control that you would have with a pen and paper. Actually, I find I draw better without the paper, because with paper, when you're drawing, you have resistance from the paper pushing up against the pen and the pen pushing down. And you also have to squeeze the pen as you push down, whereas this doesn't require any downward pressure at all. So everything just floats real easily. And because of that, I find my writing is actually better on a quilt. I know it's not normal to be able to write on a quilt easily. So doing a little graffiti writing here. Oops, I made an L. So we'll just pretend we didn't mean to do that. And you can see how I just scoot, so I was getting close to the edge. You just take the bottom frame and slide it up, and then the top frame moves. And you can adjust by moving the frame around with the handle in it, because you see the handle does get stuck in there. So you don't have to use muscles to hold that in place. It is held by the frames. Everything I make ergonomic, so you don't get injured by doing your artwork. What I want to show you, and all a pebble is an O or a circle. You've been making these circles your whole life, so you can make teeny tiny ones, which would be very cumbersome if you didn't have the OCTI-HOOPS. So now if I want to draw a feather, should have cut my tail. And then we come back down, and you can see that I am able to come right back over the line that I did before. And the reason it's easy to do that with our OCTI-HOOPS is because your elbows are down, so your hands are supported. You're not wavy, or in essence, when you sit with your elbows up, you wobble. You're not stable. But once you put your elbows down on the table, you become grounded to the machine, which is grounded on the actual sewing machine or on the earth. When I do these, I usually say out loud, teardrop, teardrop. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want. There's nobody telling you to go fast. You don't get a worse or better experience by going slow. It's easier for your eyes to go slow enough so that your eyes can see what it is that you're doing. It's so much fun, you guys, because the actual fabric isn't sticking to the bed of the machine. If you ever had your stitches get really tight and really long, it's from pushing down from above. As you push down, it causes the fabric to stick to the surface of the machine, and then it lets go and it creates large stitches. So the fact that the bottom of the quilt is supported by the bottom frame, there's no resistance or anything to cause the quilt to distort or become stuck. And you just push the bottom frame, move the top frame, and elbows down, shoulders relaxed. And then continue. If I say teardrop, as I do it, I get a better teardrop. Teardrop. And then you can go around. Slide and slide the top frame too. Have you guys done any free motion quilting before? Now you can go in and go into the middle and add more interest to it. So these are the OCTI-HOOPS. I will put, this will be saved, by the way, to my Instagram for viewing later, and I will put the link to it, but you'll find this at creativefeet.com. This, you can actually embroider on baseball caps with this, and wedding veils. There's really no limit to the type of fabric that you can use with it. It's also great for mending. Pretty much makes your regular sewing machine into a long arm-ish and an embroidery machine without having to change machines. So let's see. Up here, and we can go in here now, and you'll see that my hand changed position. Usually I'm holding like that, but sometimes I switch to this where my fingers are beneath the quilt, and then my thumb brings that corner to the other corner. So this is how it's working. One frame is beneath, the other frame goes on top. Bring the corner of one into the corner of the other, hand rests, and then you just draw. You can also use this for free motion embroidery, and this is done with a stabilizer on the back of the hoop. This is our stick and tear stabilizer, and it sticks really well to the hoop, but there's no adhesive left on the frame, and you can see how the stitch quality is really good. And you stretch and make sure that's taut on the frame. That enables you to then just lay any fabric on top. And this was fabric that I inked with inks that we offer at creativefeet.com that don't stiffen the fabric. And in this case, we don't need two frames, so you set one frame aside, and then you drop the handle into the frame and choose where you want to embroider. Kind of running out of space to stitch on this. And just as before, hand supports the paper, this hand writes with the pen, and so it's exact same muscle memory as it is to draw on paper. And you can go relatively fast, or you can go really slow. There's so much thread on this, there's really not that much space that hasn't been stitched on. Very relaxing, and once you don't try pushing down as you're going, it becomes much easier. Do little circles, and you'll see my fingers are moving in that circular design, and then you just basically are moving the paper instead of the pen. And you create whatever design your fingers move like. And when you're done, you'll just tear the stabilizer off the fabric. Again, these are available at creativefeet.com. because they don't attach to the machine. They fit all machines. You can also monogram with these as well. And we are live on Instagram for the first time. It feels good to finally do it. In this case, you can use a zigzag stitch. And it's just slow writing. Hands get uncomfortable, stop and move, and then begin again. So, I think I'll quilt a little bit more because that gives some more people time to get on. And once again, we used, sorry for bumping the camera. We have 2 frames that are used at the same time, but you do receive 3 frames. So you have quite a bit of an option as to the size of the project you can do. And even if the project filled in the whole area, you can, and you wanted to even go bigger, you can, because you just pull the fabric off and move it over and then reapply the stabilizer and begin again. So you can embroider very large objects with this and quilt all the way up to king size quilt. So one of the things you're taught when quilting is to always start in the middle and push your puckers out from the middle, but we don't get any puckers with this because without a presser foot being used on top, it doesn't cause any distortion of the fabric. And that's why this is not basted in any way on top or bottom. And then you slide one frame beneath, the other one goes on top. And then the handle is integrated. You rest your hand, like your fingers on the bottom frame. Bring the frames together with your opposite hand. And that's the posture that you're in when using these. So you just slide this beneath. And now the quilt is actually lifted up above the bed of the machine so it can't get stuck to the machine and just glides really, really easily on the bed of the machine. So you don't have to worry about your stitch length varying and getting really short from you pushing down as you would with any other hoop system. And since this doesn't attach to your machine, it fits all machines. If I'm being redundant, it's because people are coming in at different times. Oops. We use a straight stitch when we quilt. So you have the ability to follow around little objects like that. So you can write anything that you want on your fabric and then draw right over it. Being consistent is so much easier with this. Try not to sit on your thread too long, that's what I did there. So you can do pebbles, which are just zeros. You can go around and around right over to make it stand out more. Sorry about that. Pebbles are just zeros. You can also do what they do river rock, where They're ovals. If you want to draw straight lines, it's very simple. Just draw like you would on a piece of paper. So doing fill-in stitches is super easy. Elbows down, hand resting on the frame beneath. And then you can do your, of course, your traditional stippling. But you can also do miniature items like feathers. So tiny projects become much simpler because we're not having to move our hands like that. Instead, you're just moving your fingers for a short distance. So you can see the fluidity of this becomes very simple, and it's really just doodling now at this point, whatever you want to doodle. I think I'm going to stop. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you're interested in any of the products that you saw here today, they're available at creativefeet.com. I'll be coming around live more often now that I know how to do it and succeeded. So thanks for watching.